My brother Colin always had this way of making me feel small. Growing up, he was the golden child, the one our parents constantly compared me to while I was just Shane, who tried too hard at everything. I moved out at 22 just to get distance from the constant measuring stick that was Colin's existence. The apartment became mine 6 years ago, after my grandmother passed and left me some money. My parents expected me to invest it like responsible Colin would have. Instead, I put down a massive deposit and signed a long-term lease in my name only. Finally had something that was completely mine, without anyone's input or judgment. Megan came along 2.5 years ago. Met her at a hardware store, both of us confused in the electrical aisle trying to figure out light switches. She moved in after about 8 months. Looking back, she always asked strange questions about the lease, when it renewed, what the exact terms were. I thought she was being practical about our shared future. Okay, we're starting with the classic golden child setup, and I already know this is gonna hurt. But can we talk about how Shane used his inheritance to build something independent, and his parents still found a way to make it about Colin? Invest it like Colin would. Brother wasn't even in the transaction, and he's still the benchmark. That's the thing about being the unfavored kid. You could cure cancer, and someone would ask why you didn't do it faster like your sibling would have. And Megan asking about lease terms 8 months in? Listen, I've dated people for years who couldn't tell you if I rented or owned. Most partners don't know your lease renewal date because most partners aren't running reconnaissance. That's not practical about our future, that's intelligence gathering. She was doing due diligence like this man was a merger acquisition. Things started going missing 4 months ago. My grandfather's watch from the nightstand, cash from my desk drawer, a pair of cufflinks. I blamed myself initially, thought I was misplacing things. Megan suggested maybe I was stressed out. Maybe I should see someone about my memory. Colin, who suddenly started visiting way more often once Megan moved in, agreed. He reminded me I was always the forgetful, scattered one growing up. Their instant agreement on everything started bothering me. Colin barely tolerated me our whole lives, but now he and my girlfriend were finishing each other's sentences. They had inside jokes I wasn't part of, little looks exchanged when they thought I wasn't paying attention. I bought a basic security camera from a store downtown, simple wireless model that streams to an app. I tucked it on the bookshelf behind some books pointed at the living room. Megan worked from home most days. If someone was taking my things, I'd catch them. This is textbook gaslighting, and it makes my blood pressure spike every single time. They're stealing from him, and then suggesting he needs therapy for noticing things are missing. That's so diabolical, it's almost impressive. Almost. And Colin's suddenly becoming a frequent visitor after ignoring Shane for years. When someone who's treated you like furniture suddenly wants to be best friends, they don't want you. They want something you have. Colin showed up because the apartment had value, not because Shane did. That's the saddest part. Shane probably felt for a second like maybe his brother was finally coming around, finally seeing him as worth knowing. Nope. Just casing the joint. 3 weeks passed. Nothing suspicious. Then last Thursday I was eating lunch in my car at work when I got a motion notification. I opened the app and saw Megan on the couch with her laptop open, clearly on a video call. I almost swiped away, but then I heard Colin's voice through her speakers. I cranked my phone volume to maximum. They were laughing about something. Then Megan started talking about the dinner I made the night before, her favorite pasta recipe. She was making fun of how many times I asked if she enjoyed it. She imitated me asking over and over, voice mocking. Colin was laughing so hard I could hear him wheezing. Then she said something about the lease renewal coming up in 3 months, and Colin started responding about timing and patience, and my phone went black, battery dead at 2%. I sat there staring at the dark screen, not moving for probably 20 minutes. That night, I acted completely normal, made us dinner, asked about her day. She smiled and said everything was wonderful, how lucky she felt to have me. I smiled back and said I felt lucky too, but everything inside me had turned cold and calculating. I didn't know the full picture yet, but I knew enough to understand I'd been playing the wrong game this entire time. Next morning, I connected the camera to a power bank and switched it to 24-hour continuous recording. Then I called the leasing office and started asking very specific questions about leaseholder rights. He made her favorite pasta and asked if she liked it because he cared, because he wanted her to be happy, and she turned that into a comedy bit for his brother. That's not just betrayal. That's using someone's love as entertainment. Every time someone's vulnerable with you, every time they show they care, you're supposed to protect that. She weaponized it for laughs. But here's where Shane became a different person, and honestly, I'm here for it. That switch from victim to strategist happened in a parked car over a dead phone battery. 20 minutes of silence, and he came out the other side as someone who understood that love is not going to save him here. Information will. The 24-hour recording, the leasing office call? That's not paranoia. That's preparation. He stopped bringing a heart to a chess match and started bringing a chessboard. Update 1. So I watched 12 hours of footage that weekend while Megan thought I was at a work training session. Some of you asked for the full picture, and honestly, I wish I didn't have it now. The conversation from Thursday continued after my phone died. Colin was explaining how he lost his apartment 2 months ago. His girlfriend Lucy kicked him out after catching him doing something. He didn't specify what, but apparently he's been couch surfing at friends' places ever since. Our parents don't know. Golden boy Colin couldn't possibly admit failure to mom and dad, so he needed a backup plan. And apparently that backup plan was my apartment. The scheme was simple. Megan would work on getting added to my lease as a co-tenant. Once she was legally on it, they'd create enough tension to push me out. Colin would move in as her roommate, and they'd split rent. Megan gets cheaper housing. Colin gets his stability back without admitting anything to our parents. I get discarded like I always was in this family. So Colin got kicked out for doing something so bad he won't even name it on a video call. And his solution wasn't self-reflection, wasn't apologizing to Lucy, wasn't telling his parents the truth. It was to steal his brother's life. The audacity of thinking, I messed up my situation so I'll just take someone else's, is a level of entitlement that should be studied in universities. And the scheme itself is so calculated it's giving Ocean's 11. If Ocean's 11 was about being a terrible sibling, they had roles. Megan handles the lease infiltration. Colin waits in the wings. Shane gets manufactured out of his own home. They really sat there and plotted like this was a heist movie, and Shane was the security system to be bypassed. But here's what really got me. Megan explained how she'd been updating Colin weekly for months about my schedule, my finances, my insecurities. She told him exactly how much I had in savings. She told him about my anxiety about being compared to him growing up. She told him I'd probably just leave quietly if confronted because I hate conflict. They studied me like I was some obstacle to work around. The missing items suddenly made sense too. Megan mentioned selling my grandfather's watch to some guy she knew. Colin laughed and called it seed money for furniture when he moves in. Weekly updates. She was filing reports on this man like he was a case study. Every insecurity Shane ever shared in a vulnerable moment, every fear, every childhood wound, she packaged it all up and delivered it to the one person who spent a lifetime making him feel small. That's not just betrayal, that's espionage. She used intimacy as an intelligence operation. And calling the grandfather's watch seed money for furniture? They stole a family heirloom, something with actual sentimental value that connected Shane to someone who loved him, and reduced it to a down payment on a couch. Colin was already decorating an apartment he planned to steal while laughing about the theft that would fund it. These two deserve each other, and I mean that as the insult it is. I spent Sunday making lists. The lease was entirely in my name. Megan had zero legal standing. The leasing office confirmed she was listed only as an occupant, not a tenant. She could be removed with proper notice, but I didn't want to just kick her out. That's too clean. Too easy. They'd spin it to my parents as me being unstable, difficult, unable to maintain relationships. Classic Shane falling apart again. Monday morning my mother called. She wanted to confirm our family dinner next Saturday. Then she mentioned how worried Colin was about me lately, how I seemed stressed and forgetful, how Megan had confided to Colin that she was concerned about my mental state. My own mother asked if I was doing okay, if maybe I needed professional help. They were already laying groundwork, turning my own family against me before I even knew I was in a fight. Colin was setting up the narrative that, when things blew up, I'd be the unstable one who couldn't handle his relationship ending. I told my mother I was doing great. Never better, actually. Then I asked if Colin was bringing anyone to dinner since I heard through a friend that Lucy moved out. Mom went quiet. She didn't know anything about Colin's living situation. That silence told me everything. Colin hadn't told them. He was hiding his failure while simultaneously painting me as the troubled one. The perfect brother strategy? I started planning that night. Not just removal. I wanted them to understand what it feels like to have the ground disappear beneath you, to have nowhere to go, to watch someone smile at you while systematically dismantling your life. Saturday dinner was 6 days away. Colin and Megan would both be there performing their concerned act. They had no idea I had recordings. They had no idea I'd already talked to the leasing office. They thought I was the same predictable pushover I'd always been. The preemptive reputation destruction is what separates amateurs from truly committed villains. They weren't just planning to take his apartment, they were planning to take his credibility, so that when it happened, nobody would believe his version. Mom's already asking if Shane needs professional help because Colin and Megan have been whispering in her ear for weeks. That's not paranoia, that's a coordinated campaign. But Shane asking about Lucy at exactly the right moment? Surgical. One question. And suddenly, Mom realizes her golden boy has been lying to her face. That silence on the phone was the first crack in Colin's perfect image, and Shane placed it there like a chess grandmaster sacrificing a pawn to set up checkmate. These people thought they were dealing with the same pushover who'd been compared to Colin his whole life. They forgot that being underestimated your entire life teaches you exactly how to move undetected. Also, I want them to understand what it feels like to have the ground disappear beneath you. Is the most protagonist becoming the villain line I've heard all year, and I'm absolutely seated for whatever comes next. Update 2. Saturday dinner happened. I showed up early to my parents' house before Colin and Megan arrived. My dad was watching a game. My mom was cooking. Normal Saturday. I casually mentioned to my mom that I was thinking about downsizing apartments. Said the place felt too big lately. She looked confused and reminded me Megan lived there. I shrugged and said things change. People move on. You never know what happens. She started asking if we were fighting. I kept answers vague. Said I'd been reevaluating things and realized some people weren't who I thought they were. Colin and Megan arrived 20 minutes later, together, in Colin's car. They walked in laughing, and the audacity of them acting like a unit in front of our parents almost made me lose composure. But I smiled, hugged Megan, shook Colin's hand. Dinner started normal, Mom's pot roast. Dad complaining about work. Then Colin brought up how stressed I'd seemed lately. Mentioned Megan had been worried about me too. Said maybe I was taking on too much. I turned to Megan and asked her to explain exactly what she'd been telling Colin about me. She got flustered, started backtracking. Colin jumped in defending her, saying they only talked occasionally about family stuff. That's when I asked Colin where he was living these days. Point blank, in front of both parents. The psychological warfare started before they even arrived. Shane planting seeds with Mom about downsizing, and some people weren't who I thought they were. That's not venting. That's preparing the battlefield. By the time Colin and Megan showed up, Mom already had questions forming in her mind that Shane put there. And Colin and Megan arriving together in the same car while trying to pretend they're just concerned family members? The lack of operational security is embarrassing, honestly. They couldn't even maintain the illusion for a parking lot. And then Colin opens his mouth at dinner to run his poor, stressed Shane narrative, and Shane just asks Megan to explain. To her face, in front of everyone, the table just became a courtroom and Shane didn't even raise his voice. He just asked a question and watched them both start drowning. Table went silent. Colin tried to deflect, said he was staying with friends temporarily while looking for a new place. Dad asked what happened to his apartment with Lucy. Colin stumbled through excuses about lease complications. I pushed harder. Asked when exactly he lost the apartment. Mentioned I heard it was 2 months ago. Mom demanded to know why she wasn't told. Colin was trapped between lying more or admitting he'd hidden his failure for weeks. Megan tried changing subjects, but I wasn't done. I asked if Colin had another arrangement in mind, something more permanent, maybe involving someone else's lease. The look they exchanged was everything. Pure panic. Recognition that I knew more than expected. Colin tried laughing it off. Megan suddenly needed the bathroom and fled. My parents were confused, demanding explanations. Colin was sweating, trying to maintain his golden boy image. I sat there eating pot roast while their narrative collapsed. Then the complication I didn't anticipate. My mom, trying to fix everything like always, suggested since Colin needed a place, maybe he could stay with me and Megan temporarily. Family helps family. Colin's face lit up. Megan returned just in time to hear. Now I was positioned as the bad guy if I refused housing my own brother. I sat there eating pot roast while their narrative collapsed. Is the most cold-blooded thing I've read in months. They spent weeks building a story where Shane was the unstable one, and he dismantled it between appetizers and the main course without ever losing his appetite. The pancake levels of calm while Colin sweats through his shirt trying not to lose his golden boy status. That's revenge served temperature controlled. But, and this is why moms are simultaneously wonderful and infuriating, Sears, her instinct to fix everything nearly handed Colin exactly what he wanted. She doesn't know about the scheme yet. She just sees 2 of her kids and thinks, family helps family. This is why you have to finish what you start. Half measures leave room for well-meaning parents to accidentally become accomplices. Final update. The drive home from dinner was silent. Megan kept glancing at me trying to read the situation. When we got inside, she immediately started damage control, saying Colin just needed temporary help, and families should support each other, and wasn't I being a little paranoid about the lease questions at dinner? I let her talk for 10 minutes straight. Every excuse, every deflection. Then I pulled out my phone and played the recording from Thursday, her own voice filling the apartment, calling me pathetic, laughing about the dinner, discussing the plan with Colin. Megan went white, started stammering that it was taken out of context, that they were just venting, that she didn't mean any of it. I asked about my grandfather's watch. She denied it initially, then switched to saying she was going to tell me eventually that she needed money for something important. I told her she had 48 hours to vacate. She wasn't on the lease. She had no legal right to be there. I'd already confirmed this with the leasing office and had formal documentation ready. She tried arguing that 2 years together meant something, that I couldn't just throw her out. I reminded her that 2 years apparently meant nothing when she was plotting to remove me from my own apartment. She started crying, but I'd seen enough fake concern from her to know the difference between manipulation and genuine emotion. Letting her talk for 10 full minutes before playing the recording is diabolical, and I'm taking notes. She dug her hole deeper with every excuse while Shane just stood there holding the shovel. Then her own voice comes through that phone speaker, and suddenly there's nowhere to hide. No, you're being paranoid. No, that's not what happened. Just her, in high-definition audio, calling her boyfriend pathetic and planning his removal. The 2 years together meant something argument is rich, coming from someone who spent a significant chunk of those 2 years running a long-term operation. You don't get to use the relationship as a shield when you were using it as a weapon. And I was going to tell you eventually. About the stolen watch? Ma'am, you sold a family heirloom and called it seed money. There was no eventually. There was just hoping he never noticed. Then came the calls from Colin. He'd clearly been waiting to hear from Megan because 20 minutes after our conversation, his name lit up my phone. I answered, and before he could say anything, I told him I knew everything. The recordings, the plan, the watch, all of it. Colin tried the brotherhood angle first. Said I was overreacting, that it wasn't what I thought. When that failed, he got angry. Said I was always too sensitive, always looking for reasons to feel like a victim. Classic Colin making my reaction the problem instead of his actions. I told him I'd already sent the recordings to our parents. Every word, every mocking impression of me, every detail about their scheme. His tone changed immediately. Started begging me not to ruin his relationship with mom and dad. Said he couldn't handle them knowing he failed, knowing he'd been lying, knowing what he thought of his own brother. The golden child terrified of losing his position. I gave Megan exactly 48 hours. She tried extending it, tried negotiating, tried threatening to tell people I kicked her out unfairly. I reminded her I had recordings of her admitting to theft and conspiracy. She packed and left that Sunday evening. Colin showed up Monday, trying to intercept before she was fully gone. He thought maybe they could still salvage something if they combined resources. I didn't let him inside. Told him through the door that he was no longer welcome at my apartment. That as far as I was concerned, I was an only child now. My parents called me that night after reviewing the recordings. My mom was devastated. My dad was furious with Colin. For the first time in my entire life, they saw the real dynamic between us. They saw who Colin actually was when he thought nobody was watching. By Wednesday, both Megan and Colin were scrambling. She was staying on someone's couch. He was running out of friends willing to host him. They started messaging me together, coordinating their pleas, asking where they were supposed to live, saying I couldn't just do this, claiming they were joking, begging to explain. I let them sit in that uncertainty, the same uncertainty they planned for me, the same ground disappearing beneath them that they wanted me to experience. They executed nothing, but I did. Colin's playbook in one phone call. Step 1. You're overreacting. Step 2. You're too sensitive. Step 3. Please don't tell mom. The golden child speed ran through denial and deflection straight into begging the moment his image was at stake. All that big brother energy evaporated when the parents were about to hear who he really was. As far as I'm concerned, I'm an only child now. Through the door? Shane didn't even let him inside to have that conversation. Colin had to stand in a hallway and receive his dismissal from the family like a package that couldn't be delivered. The symbolism is chef's kiss. What gets me is them messaging together at the end, coordinating their begging. They planned together, they schemed together, and now they're homeless together. It's poetic. They wanted to combine resources to take Shane's apartment. Now they're combining resources to ask for mercy. The same alliance that was supposed to destroy him is now desperately trying to get him to undo what they started.